Okay, so back to the play. We left off with Kent bidding farewell to the king, to Cordelia, to Regan and Goneril, and parting company from the king, talking to about shaping his old course in a new country. But he's an old man. So is that likely? He's probably the same age as Lear. He's about 80 years old now. In Shakespeare's day, that's a ripe old age. Like he is. You could argue that there's a form of senility that's set in here. Yeah, there's a senility about him, and but it's way more than a play about old age. That would misrepresent the play and the substance of the play. But okay, so he departs, and enter Gloucester, who's gone out and fetched France and Burgundy and attendants. And then Gloucester announced, "Here's France and Burgundy, my noble lord." And then Lear, my lord of Burgundy. Remember, these are the two suitors vying for Cordelia's hand. And these men are both wealthy. They've come from France. And we have to remember that in English history, the kings of France and England go back and forth an awful lot. Sometimes the king of England is also the king of France. Sometimes the king of France is the king of England, vice versa. Sometimes there are two, but often they will intermarry, so the one immediately inherits the other. So there's a lot of that going on here. So these two have come across in the hopes of becoming king of England and also of this. So they will enlarge there. And again, that's a representation of their virtue. Their kingdom is a representation of that. It's not just about grabbing power, but although it could be. So this is like, for our day, there's so much cynicism about power because it's largely devoid of virtue. All we do is virtue signal, but there's no genuine virtue, at least so we say, although I think there's a lot more than people give credit to, although it's because we don't reward virtue, we reward money and we reward power. People who are virtuous are not encouraged to be so. And that's a real social problem. That's a social political problem. You have to reward virtue. If you want a virtuous country, you have to reward virtue. That means you need to punish vice. You have to punish vice. All of that is necessary to have a just country. So injustice ends up infecting the whole body politic. At any rate, enter France and Burgundy. Lear, my lord of Burgundy, we first address toward you, who with this king, that is the king of France, because Burgundy is such a rich duchy within France that it vies and rivals with it. But we have the king of France, and Burgundy is yet comparable to him in some ways. But he says, we first address toward you, who with this king hath rivaled for our daughter. What in the least will you require in present dower with her, or cease your quest of love? Because he's still intending on marrying off his daughter. What do you want in return for my daughter? Most royal majesty, I crave no more than hath your highness offered, nor will you tender less, because that would be scandalous. Of course, you offered this, that was your word, and so I'm going to take it, and you won't give me less because that would dishonor you to do that. You've given me your word. That's it, right? I'm not going to ask more, and you're not going to give less. That's his response. Right, noble Burgundy, when she was dear to us, we did hold her so, but now her price is fallen. Note it talks about her in financial terms. We get like a bit of what we see in A Modest Proposal. People's value has a price put on it. Their worth as a human being. Commodifying. His daughter is now spoken of as if she were livestock. Her price has fallen. Sir, there she stands. If aught within that little seeming substance, or all of it, with our displeasure pieced, and nothing more, may fitly like your grace, she's there, and she's yours. I know no answer. Will you, with those infirmities she owes, unfriended, new adopted to our hate, dowered with our curse, and strangered with our oath, take her or leave her. So not only does she have nothing, you will be my enemy. So it's not only is he not offering what he originally offered, he's giving her nothing. And on top of it, you will be my foe. I will hate you and I will curse you. So are you willing to take her then? Pardon me, royal sir. Election takes not up in such conditions. Then leave her, sir. For by the power that made me, I tell you all her wealth. And now to France. For you, great king, I would not from your love make such a stray to match you where I hate. Where therefore beseech you to avert your liking a more worthier way than on a wretch whom nature is ashamed almost to acknowledge hers. This is most strange, that she, whom even but now was your best object, the argument of your praise, balm of your age, the best, the dearest, should in this trice of time commit a thing so monstrous to dismantle so many folds of favor. Sure her offense must be of such unnatural degree that monsters it, or your forevouched affection fall into taint, which to believe of her must be a faith that reason without miracle should never plant in me. I cannot. It's an impossible situation. There's no way that she's acted so viciously as this. And then Cordelia, who obviously wants to marry France and didn't care about Burgundy. Now she speaks. I yet beseech your majesty, if for I want that glib and oily art to speak and purpose not, since that I well intend, I'll do it before I speak, that you may make known it is no vicious blot, murder, or foulness, no unchaste action, or dishonored step, that hath deprived me of your grace and favor, but even for want of that for which I am richer, a still soliciting eye, and such a tongue that I am glad I have not, though not to have it hath lost me in your liking, says to Lear. Better thou hadst not been born than not to have pleased me better. Is but this a tardiness in nature which often leaves the history unspoke that it intends to do? My lord of Burgundy, what say you to the lady? Love's not love when it is mingled with regards that stands aloof from the entire point. Will you have her? She is herself a dowry. Okay, woohoo. Gentlemen, she is herself a dowry. Royal king, give but that portion. He sees her value. Boy, yes, this is a virtuous woman. You're right, I was a little too hasty. I thought something terrible had happened. It's nothing here at all. Royal king, give but that portion which yourself proposed, and here I take Cordelia by the hand, Duchess of Burgundy. Nothing. I have sworn, I am firm. I am sorry then that you have so lost a father, he says to Cordelia, that you must lose a husband. Peace be with Burgundy. Since that respects of fortune are his love, I shall not be his wife. For better or for worse, richer for poorer, whatever, he values not me anyway, but the price. In other words, he's a lot like her father. He's not a virtuous man. He values the titles and everything, but doesn't have the love of virtue that she represents. And remember, I think you really need to see Cordelia as a personification of virtue here. And she has nothing to her but virtue. So the man that loves Cordelia is a virtuous man that loves it. She symbolizes that almost. It's a strong identification here. And then France, in response to this, fairest Cordelia, that art most rich, being poor, most choice, forsaken, and most loved, despised. Thee and thy virtues here I seize upon. Be it lawful, I take up what's cast away. Gods, 'tis strange that from their cold neglect my love should kindle to inflamed respect. Thy dowerless daughter, king, thrown to my chance, is queen of us, of ours and our fair France. Not all the dukes of Waterish, Burgundy can buy this unprized, precious maid of me. Bid them well, Cordelia, though unkind. Thou losest here a better where to find. So now we have the two noble, the King of France and Cordelia, two noble figures that love virtue. He loves her because she's virtuous. It's the, if you want to see him, it's not a foil because it's a different play, but he's the exact opposite of Angelo. He doesn't find his desires excited by a virtuous woman in order to behave foully, the other way around. He loves her because she's virtuous and he sees her value for the first time. Not that she had no value before, but now she has nothing. She's that much. She is virtue. So he is a great man. The King of France is a great man, is how he's presented here. And again, black and white, very stark presentation here on Shakespeare's part. Thou hast her, France, let her be thine, for we have no such daughter, nor shall ever see that face of hers again. And then to Cordelia, therefore be gone, without our grace, our love, our benison. Come, noble Burgundy, and then flourish, all exit, but France, Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia. So the two virtuous and the two vicious sisters. Bid farewell to your sisters. And now the exchange between the sisters is rather telling. The jewels of our father, with washed eyes, Cordelia leaves you. I know you what you are, and like a sister am most loath to call your faults as they are named. Love well our father, to your professed bosoms I commit him. But yet, alas, stood I within his grace, I would prefer him to a better place. So farewell to you both. Prescribe not to us our duty. You got the typical Cinderella and the two ugly sisters. You know, don't tell them. Yeah, prescribe not us our duty. Let your study be to content your Lord, who hath received you at fortune's alms. You're a beggar. You have obedience scanted, and well are worth the want that you have wanted. Time shall unfold what plighted cunning hides. Who covers faults at last with shame derides. Well may you prosper. Come, my fair Cordelia. Okay, telling exchange. What's Cordelia saying in this speech? She's saying that people who act viciously, like her sisters have, will not enjoy the fruits of their actions. Virtue will win because she believes that God is just, and justice and virtue will be rewarded. Ultimately, although she has no reward, nor any prospect of it, but she has a belief in the providential order of things and is willing to wait for that. And she's so kind to her sisters that she's not even going to call them what they are, what the rest of us are thinking. Okay, so they go out, and now all that's left is Goneril and Regan. Now we hear them. Sister, it is not little I have to say of what most nearly appertains to us both. I think our father will hence tonight. That's most certain. And with you, next month with us. You see how full of changes his age is. Note that the two of them speak like commoners. Just note the verse. It's not blank verse, it's just speeches, so there's no ordering to their thoughts. Their passions are overruling their reasoning. That's what's expressed in the versification here. See how full of changes his age is. The observation we have made of it hath not been little. He always loved our sister most, and with what poor judgment he hath now cast her off appears too grossly. 'Tis the infirmity of age. Yet he hath ever but slenderly known himself. So it's not just a new thing. Yes, he's degenerated because of his age, but actually He's always been a fool. He doesn't know himself. Remember the injunction, the Delphic oracle, know thyself. Socrates' response to this, to the Delphic oracle's utterance that he was the wisest man on earth, and he went around asking people who the wisest were, and he went to the sophists, and they claimed to be the wisest, and he always showed them to be fools, thereby showing Socrates to be the wisest, as he was predicted to be, and infuriating all the sophists and so forth. But he doesn't know himself. He doesn't know what sort of man is. He doesn't understand the nature of virtue and vice, and the playing within. He's just a man given over to his passions. He's always been. How did he get a daughter like Cordelia? Is a mystery, because she is a pearl. Anyway, Goneril, the best and soundest of his time hath been but rash. Then must we look from his age to receive not alone the imperfections of long ingraft condition, but therewithal the unruly waywardness that infirm and choleric years bring with them. Such unconstant starts are we like to have from him as this of Kent's banishment. There is further compliment of leave taking between France and him. Pray you let us hit together. If our father carry authority with such disposition as he bears, this last surrender of his will but offend us. We shall further think of it. We must do something. And in the heat, let's strike while the iron's hot. Let's do something before he does worse things, because we've already seen what he's capable of doing towards his favorites, Cordelia and Kent. If he's willing to do that to them, he'll certainly do that to us. Remember, he's still the king. He's got a retinue of 100 knights. He still has the throne, as it were, even though he has no possessions. He's weakened himself, but he still believes that he's in power, more or less. It's a strange action. Okay. Scene 2. Now we go to Edmund with a letter and Gloucester. So this is the subplot which was introduced right at the outset of the play, but now the subplot, Edmund the Bastard, as it's called in the text. And this is really interesting. Thou, nature. Nature, what does he mean by nature? Always a problem, every play, every work of literature, you really need to investigate this word nature. What's meant by the word nature? It means something different in different writers in different ages. And in some ages, it can mean multiple things. In our day, nature doesn't mean multiple things. Nature is the romantic sense of nature. It's just a good, nature's a good thing. Divinized, more or less. That's not what's meant here. Edmund's not a romantic. He's not saying that nature is entirely good, because remember, he's a bastard. So he doesn't have that unambiguous assertion of the goodness of nature. What does he mean by it? Anyway, thou, nature, art my goddess. To thy law my services are bound. Wherefore should I stand in the plague of custom and permit the curiosity of nations to deprive me? For that I am some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother? Why bastard? Wherefore base? When my dimensions are as well compact, my mind as generous, and my shape as true as honest madam's issue. Why brand they us with base, with baseness, bastardy? Base? Base, who in this lusty stealth of nature take more composition and fierce quality than doth within a dull, stale, tired bed go to the creating a whole tribe of fops, got between asleep and wake? Well then, legitimate Edgar, I must have your land. Our father's love is to the bastard Edmund, as to the legitimate. Fine word, legitimate. Well, my legitimate, if this letter speed and my invention thrive, Edmund the base shall top the legitimate. I grow, I prosper. Now gods stand up for bastards. Okay, so what does he mean by nature? just natural power, natural capacity, without virtue. He's as intelligent, good-looking, all of those things. He's thinking like a materialist as well. So nature in the materialist sense. He is every bit as capable as his brother. And what's the difference between them? 12 to 14 moonshines. And one, and based on what Gloucester just said, the one was sorry and one was good sport, and the other was, well, I rolled over and was half asleep, and there's a whole bunch of idiots, and they're legitimate, whatever. And so he is not only, he's presenting nature, his goddess, against custom. And custom is the law. So he's an antinomian as well. He regards the laws, the customs, conventions, titles, and so forth as, they're made up. There's nothing in these distinctions of nobility and so forth. Remember what we said about the order of nations and the order of events, and Shakespeare's understanding of aristocracy and of degree at the outset, if you remove but degree, and hark what discord follows. Both Gloucester and Lear have already scanted nobility. They don't, they have power and they appeal to power, but they don't appeal to virtue. They aren't governed by it. They're not governed by love either. They're governed by their lusts. Not the same thing. And in fact, Gloucester shows that by saying, well, my love for his mother was more powerful than my love for hers, because I thought she was hotter. That's got nothing to do with love per se. That's a very degenerate way of looking at these things. As I say, it's the Andrew Tate approach of masculinity. And it's my right as such, as a man. So this is Edmund the Bastard. He hates the word bastard. He's going to show what a bastard he is, but he thinks that everyone's a bastard. It's just the injustice is that he alone is being designated a bastard. So that's it. He's a man who thinks that all pretenses of nobility and so forth are just that. It's a sham. It's almost a Marxist take on these things, quite frankly. Yes?
It makes me think of William of Normandy, William the Conqueror, because he was a bastard as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he legitimized himself by force, right?
Sure.
And so Edmund seems to be kind of a character study on kind of the bastard that demands to prove himself. Thinks, I'll show them that I'm not a bastard by showing them that I can beat them all.
Yeah, and then that's just a show of force. You can show yourself that you're not a bastard, not by winning, but by how you live your life. So there's nothing you can do about your conception. If you were, born outside of wedlock, the bastard is as the bastard does. And that is a consistent portrait of that throughout Western literature. Go back to the first work that we studied here at Tyndale in the Odyssey, and remember the swineherd. Born the son of a king, enslaved, while Odysseus is away, how does he act? Does he act like all the suitors, the nobility, or how does he treat the son of his slave master? Eumaeus the swineherd. He treats his son like royalty, even though he's fallen, even while nobody's looking at him. And Homer praises him for his virtuous conduct. He praises virtue. So there's I would say that the strain of praise of virtue is throughout the Western tradition there, from Homer onwards, certainly. And Edmund is speaking against that, and in some sense, probably talking in a Machiavellian sense. Nobility is there for the sake of power. You should pretend to be good, but don't be good. Being good will prevent you from achieving what you would like to do. You should pursue things under the cloak of virtue, but act viciously, and then you will get what you want. That's the way of the world. That's realpolitik. This phrase that's used in the 19th century of Bismarck. that politicians to this day use. You have to appear virtuous, but don't actually act like you believe that virtue matters. If you have a generation of politicians and the wealthy who act as if virtue didn't exist, you are going to be in a very bad state as a nation. Very bad state. But anyway, that's Edmund. Now, his intention is to go against his brother Edgar, who we've not yet met. We have met Gloucester, and Gloucester enters the room, and he's about to dupe his, and we see scene 2 as a mirror of scene 1. Lear has lost his most virtuous daughter, and now Gloucester is going to be set up to lose his virtuous son by Edmund. So they're foils, and there's a contrast between them, however. Anyway, enter Gloucester. Kent is baffled, like everyone else. Kent banished thus, and France in choler parted, and the king gone tonight, prescribed his power, confined to exhibition? All this done upon the gad? Edmund, how now, what news? So please your lordship, none. So he has the paper, and then he pretends, and he lets him see as if he's trying to hide it. Putting up the letter. Why so earnestly seek you to put up that letter? I know no news, my lord. What paper were you reading? Nothing, my lord. No. What needed then that terrible dispatch of it into your pocket? The quality of nothing hath not such need to hide itself. Let's see. Come, if it be nothing, I shall not need spectacles. I beseech you, sir, pardon me. It is a letter from my brother that I have not all o'erread, and for as much as I have perused, I find it not fit for your overlooking. Give me the letter, sir. I shall offend either to detain or give it. The contents, as in part I understand them, are to blame. Let's see. I hope for my brother's justification. He wrote this but as an essay or test of my virtue. And then Gloucester reads. Note that all the speech here, Edmund, when he spoke earlier, was speaking in verse as an aristocrat, possessed of rational intent. Gloucester and Edmund's speeches here, however, are just disordered. Again, Gloucester reads, this policy and reverence of age makes the world bitter to the best of our times, keeps our fortunes from us till our oldness cannot relish them. I begin to find an idle and fond bondage in the oppression of aged tyranny, who sways not as it hath power, but as it is suffered. Come to me, that of this I may speak more. If our father would sleep till I waked him, you should enjoy half his revenue forever, and live the beloved of your brother. Edgar. Huh? Conspiracy? Sleep till I wake him? You should enjoy half his revenue? My son, Edgar? Had he a hand to write this, a heart and brain to breed it in? When came you to this? Who brought it? It was not brought me, my lord. There's the cunning of it. I found it thrown in at the casement of my closet. You know the character to be your brother's? If the matter were good, my lord, I durst swear it were his. But in respect of that, I would fain think it were not. I'd rather think it wasn't he that wrote it. I'd rather think it wasn't. It is his. It is his hand, my lord, but I hope his heart is not in the contents. Has he never before sounded you in this business? Never, my lord. But I have heard him oft maintain it is to befit that, sons at perfect age and fathers declined, the father should be as ward to the son, and the son manage his revenue. Oh, villain, villain, his very opinion in the letter. Abhorred villain, unnatural, detested, brutish villain, worse than brutish. Go, sirrah, seek him. I'll apprehend him. Abominable villain, where is he? I do not well know, my sir. My lord, if it shall please you to suspend your indignation against my brother, till you can derive from him better testimony of his intent, you should run a certain course, where, if you violently proceed against him, mistaking his purpose, it should make a great gap in your own honor, and shake in pieces the heart of his obedience. I dare pawn my life for him, that he hath writ this to feel my affection to your honor, and to no other pretense of danger. So Edmund makes it out that he is speaking on his brother's behalf to defend him, and he must mean well. Now, what is he doing thereby? He's increasing his father's trust in his good character. He's very artful. So his father's heart. His father could not imagine such a horrible son. And Edmund pretends to share his sense of this is an impossible thing.
He's even burying the lie.
Yeah, everything is right. So he's a terrific manipulator. He's a satanic type of character. He's deceiving him and leading him astray. In his very pretense of virtues, he's very Machiavellian. He's playing the virtuous card even while acting in a way that will destroy his brother's honor and his life. Think you so? If your honor judge it meet, I will place you where you shall hear us confer of this, and by an auricular assurance have your satisfaction, and that without any further delay than this evening, this very evening. He cannot be such a monster, nor is it not, sure. To his father that so tenderly and entirely loves him, heaven and earth, Edmund, seek him out. Wind me into it, I pray you. Frame the business after your own wisdom. I would unstate myself to be in a due resolution. I will seek him, sir, presently. Convey the business as I shall find means, and acquaint you with all. Okay, so now Gloucester speaks. We've already seen that Lear is effectively a pagan. How about Gloucester? Remember his view of the gods and of life after death. Basically, after our bodies die, there's nothing left of us. We're extinguished. He's effectively a materialist, just like Karl Marx was. And the atomistic philosophers, going back to Democritus, they view that human life is we're physical natures. We don't have a spiritual nature. We don't have a moral nature. And in accordance with that, all we can do is delight our sensual natures. That's the purpose of life, is just to enjoy as much titillation as we can in our lives, as much food, as much joy, etc., from physical things. What does Gloucester say then? These late eclipses in the sun and moon portend no good to us. Though the wisdom of nature can reason it thus and thus, yet nature finds itself scourged by the sequent effects. Love cools, friendship falls off, brothers divide. In cities, mutinies. In countries, discord. In palaces, treason. And the bond cracked twixt son and father. This villain of mine comes under the prediction. There's son against father. The king falls from bias of nature. There's father against child. We have seen the best of our time. Machinations, hollowness, treachery, and all ruinous disorders follow us disquietly to our graves. Find out this villain, Edmund, it shall lose thee nothing. Do it carefully, and the noble and true-hearted can't banish his offense. Honesty. 'Tis strange. And then he goes out. Now, Edmund has a soliloquy here, and we get to, again, his villainous thoughts are revealed to the audience. This is the excellent foppery of the world, that when we are sick in fortune, often the surfeits of our own behavior, we make guilty of our disasters, the sun, the moon, and stars, as if we were villains on necessity, fools by heavenly compulsion, knaves, thieves, and treacherous by spherical predominance, drunkards, liars, and adulterers by an enforced obedience of planetary influence, and all that we are evil in by a divine thrusting on, an admirable evasion of whoremaster man to lay his goatish disposition on the charge of a star. My father compounded with my mother under the dragon's tail, and my nativity was under Ursa Major, so that it follows I am rough and lecherous. I would have been that I am, had the maidenliest star in the firmament twinkled on my bastardizing. Edgar, and then Edgar enters. So his response to this. So Gloucester is a determinist. He appeals to nature, says it's the constellation of the stars. Everything happens because of the influence of a power outside of ourselves. We have no choice in the matter. It's just fate. His son, Edmund, mocks his father's determinism. He is a Nietzschean sort of a man, Übermensch, the will to power. We have a free will. We're not influenced by nature in that sense. We have absolute, in both, we have free will to do as we choose with no determination. We are our own masters. So we get two godless men, one who blames everything on the stars, on fortune, and the other who seizes fortune and regards all opportunity in himself. So he is, in this sense, I would say again, he is a Machiavellian. And in Shakespeare's day, I think Machiavelli is presented as the great political bad guy who acts as if virtue doesn't exist, but that you should seize the moment and take what presents itself to you. You're not determined by anything. You can act freely, autonomously. Okay. Any comments or questions about what I just said there? But again, it's a Shakespearean play, and yet the terms of engagement here are unfamiliar to us. It is, to some degree, Francis Bacon's view of nature. It's a godless view of nature. It's materialism. And we have, if it is materialism and there's no gods and there's no virtue and there's no order, then the only thing that we can do then is either act as if we have no possibility of determining our situation, in which case we're just like the pagans, and that is Gloucester. Gloucester is effectively just a pagan who appeals to powers outside of himself, or we say that there's no power outside of ourselves and that we are totally free agents and nobody governs our ends except us. And the man who has the greatest spirit, namely Edmund, is the one who will rule, and that's how he seizes the moment. But both men believe in no virtue. Yes.
I think it's interesting that the play is situated as taking place in kind of some of the origins of English society, and it's considering like the senses in which, you know, whether they can escape from the sins of their parentage, and whether they can overcome it, and what happens from trying to overcome it. And I kind of have this feeling that Shakespeare's, you know, similar to how in the Bible, the Israelites don't descend from Abel, they descend from Cain, and how that's affecting, and how that original sin affects, they descend from Adam and then they descend from Cain, and how that affects their kind of sin nature. I kind of see a connection there between like the origin of English society and, you know,
Yeah, I think you're saying
they're still playing out.
You're saying too much in that, but in the biblical sense, both men are fools. The fool says in his heart, "There's no God." Mm-hmm. Both of them are fools in that sense. The folly then will differ only insofar as one will think that he has no power, and that, you know, everything is outside of himself, and the other will think that all the power resides within him. But ultimately, he thinks that it begins and ends with him. Both men. And that just one is more constrained in his view of these things. But now Edgar comes in, and as I say, Shakespeare writing here probably is thinking about the materialist views that are circulating in his day. Remember the doctrines of Sextus Empiricus, the skeptic, are circulating in Shakespeare's day as well, and he will be entertaining these. We'll also see that when we come to Hamlet, he will entertain some of these skeptical ideas, but he doesn't agree with them. Hamlet's a different character altogether, but these two are thoroughly denying the reality of virtue. Both men. Okay, enter Edgar. Edgar's a different sort. Edgar's like Cordelia in the sense that he's a virtuous character. But the difference is that he has a brother whose lack of virtue he is oblivious to. He's not aware of what a foe he has in his brother. And he's still suffering from the fact that his father's a fool. So anyway, Edgar enters. And Edmund says, "Pah, he comes like the catastrophe of the old comedy. My cue is villainous melancholy, with a sigh like Tom of Bedlam. Oh, these eclipses do portend these divisions. Fa, sol, la, mi." So he acts like he's Gloucester, humming these notes. "How now, brother Edmund, what serious contemplation are you in? I am thinking, brother, of a prediction I read this the other day. What should follow these eclipses? Do you busy yourself with that? I promise you, the effects he writes of succeed unhappily, as of unnaturalness between the child and the parent, death, dearth, dissolutions of ancient amities, divisions in state, menaces and maledictions against king and nobles, needless diffidences, banishments of friends, dissipation of cohorts, nuptial breaches, and I know not what. How long have you been a sectary astronomical? How long have you believed in astronomy, like an astrologist? Like, are you that stupid? Come. When saw you my father last? The night gone by. Spake you with him? Aye, 2 hours together. Parted you in good terms? Found you no displeasure in him by word nor countenance? None at all. Bethink yourself wherein you may have offended him, and at my entreaty forbear his presence until some little time hath qualified the heat of his displeasure, which at this instant so rages in him that with the mischief of your person it could scarcely allay. Some villain hath done me wrong. That's my fear. I pray you have a continent forbearance till the speed of his rage goes slower. And as I say, retire with me to my lodging, from whence I will fitly bring you to hear my lord speak. Pray ye, go. There's my key. If you do stir abroad, go armed. Armed, brother? Brother, I advise you the best. I am no honest man, if there be any good meaning towards you. I have told you what I have seen and heard, but faintly, nothing like the image and horror of it. Pray you away. Shall I hear from you anon? I do serve you in this business. Edgar goes out, and now, once again, Edmund. A credulous father and a brother noble, whose nature is so far from doing harms that he suspects none, on whose foolish honesty my practices ride easy. I see the business. Let me, if not by birth, have lands by wit, all with me's meet that I can fashion fit. So now the plot is afoot to bring down his brother. He has a credulous father, believed him just because he saw a note and read it and said that, oh yeah, it's his hand and so forth. So he's going to follow along. Basically, he is the dramaturge figure. Oh yes, this is what we have here, by the way. Edmund is a dramaturge figure, but an anti-dramaturge figure in the sense that he seeks to do ill. And he will achieve success in his ill intentions. So in that sense, Edmund is a bit like Lear. Except one has malice and the other's just led by who knows what. I don't think Lear is malicious in intent. He's just a fool and happens to have power. Edmund is a conniving, a really villainous. He's one of Shakespeare's blackest villains, without a doubt. So then comes scene 3. And we go back to the sisters. And the consequences, remember, they had a plot themselves to deal with the problem of the king. The king, who calls himself a king, has a retinue of 100 knights and is still a threat to them. And he's got they've now just seen the pattern of what will he not do. He will even act against his favored servant, and he will banish his son, or his daughter rather, and he will make an enemy of France. This is a madman. We got to rein him in. We have to control him. How do we do that? And we're going to see the sisters plot against their father in the same way that Edmund's just plotted against his father and his brother. So these two subplots are reinforcing one another and to the same end. There's mutiny in the ranks, discord, and the characters are different, but the themes are similar of the relation between nature and virtue. and the use of custom and the law in a kingdom where the sovereign doesn't acknowledge any of those things, and certainly doesn't acknowledge that God oversees all these actions. The only person that seems to believe that is Cordelia, perhaps the King of France. So there's it's a faint hope at this point. It's really faint. Scene 3. Enter Goneril and Stuart Oswald. Oswald's a bit of a jerk as well, willing to serve his mistress, and pretty nasty at that. But still, he's been struck by the king. Goneril, did my father strike my gentleman for chiding of his fool? Ay, madam. By day and night he wrongs me. Every hour he flashes into one gross crime or other that sets us all at odds. I'll not endure it. His nights grow riotous, and himself upbraids us on every trifle. When he returns from hunting, I will not speak with him. Say I'm sick. If you come slack of former services, you shall do well. The fault of it, I'll answer. And then they hear the horns because the king's coming. He's coming, madam, I hear him. Put on what weary negligence you please, you and your fellows. I'd have it come to question. If he distaste it, let him to my sister, whose mind and mine I know in that are one, not to be overruled. Idle old man, that still would manage those authorities that he hath given away. Now by my life, old fools are babes again, and must be used with checks as flatteries when they are seen abused. Remember what I said. Well, madam, and let his knights have colder looks among you. What grows of it, no matter. Advise your fellows so. I would breed from hence occasions, and I shall, that I may speak. I'll write straight to my sister to hold my very course. Prepare for dinner. In other words, she intends on insulting the king. Intentionally insult him to drive him out of here. I want him gone here. Her bad character. It's not that she has no cause. The king is unbearable, but she has no desire to suffer him either. She has no love for her father. Never did. So now we'll see, and in that sense, a lot like Edmund. She's gravitating in the direction of Edmund. But Goneril and Regan are nowhere near as bad as Edmund yet, but they're gravitating that way. So again, in this morality play, there is some realism in the sense that characters do develop over the course of the play as well. To say Edmund begins very black and he stays black. We know where he is already. Cordelia is very good and virtuous, and she will stay true to herself. Likewise, the King of France. But the rest of the characters, we're going to see that they vacillate, and that includes not just Goneril and Regan, but their husbands. Their husbands also are not as black and white. They're characters that are caught in this play, and we have yet to see where their allegiance will actually lie. Just like in life. So, scene 4, Kent disguised as Keys. Caius Keys. That's the way it would be said in English. If but as well I other accents borrow, that can my speech diffuse, my good intent may carry through itself to that full issue, for which I raised my likeness. So he had a beard, now he's beardless. Now, banished Kent, if thou canst serve where thou dost stand condemned, so may it come, thy master, whom thou lovest, shall find thee full of labors. So the servant who's been banished still wants to serve. He's not going to leave the king's side, although his king has banished him. The threat on his life is real. He is a loyal servant and will stick to his master to the end. And he's going to come disguised in his presence. He's shaved his beard, etc. Now Lear, the knights, and the attendants come in. Let me not stay a drop for dinner. Go get it ready. How now? What art thou? A man, sir. What dost thou profess? What wouldst thou with us? I do profess to be no less than I seem, to serve him truly that will put me in trust, to love him that is honest, to converse with him that is wise and says little, to fear judgment, to fight when I cannot choose, and to eat no fish. What's with the eating of no fish? Well, could be a reference to his virtue. Catholics will not eat fish on Fridays, sign of abstinence, mortification of flesh, etc.
They don't eat meat.
They don't meet on Friday. So, but you're right. To eat no fish then is he's not going to be with women. Never mind. So it's a crudity. It's a crudity. You're right. They do eat fish. They don't eat meat. And to eat no fish. What art thou? A very honest-hearted fellow, and as poor as the king. If thou beest poor for a subject as he's for a king, thou art poor enough. What wouldst thou? Lear's a little bit dejected at his rash actions. He can't undo what he's said. But I think he's saddened. He's a rash man. He's angry, and now he finds himself deprived of those he loves the most. He's too proud to undo it and admit and to try, and he doesn't repent, whatever, but he regrets the actions that he realizes that what Kent said, that he's a fool. He realizes that. We've not yet met the fool. The fool's coming in. What wouldst thou? Service. Who wouldst thou serve? You. Dost thou know me, fellow? No, sir, but you have that in your countenance that I would fain call master. What's that? Authority. What service? Now, the king is flattered. What services canst do? I can keep honest counsel, ride, run, mar a curious tale in telling it, and deliver. So he's making him laugh. Deliver a plain message bluntly. That which ordinary men are fit for, I am qualified in, and the best of me is diligence. How old art thou? Not so young, sir, to love a woman for singing, nor so old to dote on her for anything. I have years on my back, 48. Follow me, thou shalt serve me. If I like thee no worse, after dinner I will not part from thee yet. Dinner, oh, dinner, where's my knave, my fool? Go you and call my fool hither. Now the fool, he's not about to come in, he's going to come in a minute. The fool is a major character in Lear's play. And remember, we've already seen that Lear literally is a fool. He doesn't think there's a God, for one thing, but he's acted with the utmost folly in all of his actions thus far. The fool will come in as a foil for the king as well. And yet the fool, fools were employed by monarchs to check them and rebuke them, not through counsel, but through joking. To make them, through humor, see their own faults and to correct their own actions. So it's a sort of a counselor, but it's a counselor through comedy. It works very well, by the way. Humor has a great power to disarm hostility and to check unwise action. And kings value their fools for that reason, because they themselves, given to their own power and devices, would act foolishly, so they have a fool there to upbraid them and keep them on the straight and narrow. And you could say that certainly in Russian literature, but even in the Eastern tradition, there's a long-standing place for the so-called holy fool. It's very much there in Russian literature, but it's even here, I think, that the fool here is a virtuous figure, but doesn't appeal to virtue, but acts virtuously. even in appearing to be ignoble and so forth. Anyway, Oswald comes. He's got to provoke him first of all. Oswald comes in. You, sirrah, where's my daughter? So please you, goes out. Deliberately is rude to him. What says the fellow there? Call that clot pole back. Exit a knight. Where's my fool? Ho! I think the world's asleep. Knight comes back in. How now? Where's that mongrel? He says, my lord, your daughter is not well. Why came not the slave back to me when I called him? Sir, he answered me in the roundest manner, he would not. He would not. My lord, I know not what the matter is, but to my judgment your highness is not entertained with that ceremonious affection as you were wont. There's a great abatement of kindness appears as well in the general dependence as in the duke himself also, and your daughter. Ha! Sayest thou so? I beseech you, pardon me, my lord, if I be mistaken, for my duty cannot be silent when I think your highness wronged. Thou but rememberest me of mine own conception. I have perceived a most faint neglect of late, which I have rather blamed as mine own jealous curiosity than as a very pretense and purpose of unkindness. I will look further into it. Note that he's trying to correct his own character, like not jumping to the extremity like he did with Cordelia. I'm pretty sure I was slighted, but surely I must be mistaken. No, they've deliberately been trying to provoke you, but he's trying to correct himself here. Anyway, I will look further into it. But where's my fool? I have not seen him this 2 days. Since my young lady's going into France, sir, the fool hath much pined away. No more of that. I have noted it well. Go you and tell my daughter I would speak with her. Go you, call hither my fool. And now Oswald comes back in. Oh, you, sir, you come you hither, sir. Who am I, sir? My lady's father. My lady's father? My lord's knave, you whoreson dog, you slave, you cur. I am none of these, my lord. I beseech your pardon. Do you bandy looks with me, you rascal? Back of the hand. I'll not be strucken, my lord. And then now Kent comes in, nor tripped either, you base football player. Puts his foot behind his legs and pushes him over, tripping up his heels. I thank thee, fellow. Thou serves me, and I'll love thee. Come, sir, arise, away, I'll teach you differences. Away, away. If you will measure your lubber's length again, tarry. But away, go to, have your wisdom. Have you wisdom? So pushes Oswald out. Now, my friendly knave, I thank thee. There's earnest of thy service. And he gives him money for his service. Enter the fool. Okay, now the great scene with the fool and Lear. Let me hire him too. Here's my coxcomb. And he's got the fool's cap. You know what a coxcomb is? It's what you see. Oh, good grief. This jester hat. Right, that's the coxcomb. Just like a cockerel. So here's my coxcomb as payment, because you're a fool. You're going to serve this man? You're a fool. How now, my pretty knave? How dost thou? Sirrah, you were best take my coxcomb. Why, fool, says Kent. Why? For taking one's part that's out of favor. Nay, and thou canst not smile as the wind sits, thou'lt catch cold shortly. Here, take my coxcomb. Why, this fellow, pointing to the king, has banished 2 honest daughters, and did the 3rd a blessing against his will. If thou follow him, thou must needs wear my coxcomb. How now, nuncle, would I had 2 coxcombs and 2 daughters. Why, my boy? Lear immediately warms to the fool. He's used to jest with him. So the fool has a different relation to the king than every other character. Nuncle, give me fool to my son. Oh, Nuncle, give me an egg, and I'll give thee 2 crowns. Ha, what 2 crowns shall they be? Why, after I have cut the egg in the middle, and eat up the meat, the 2 crowns of the egg. When thou clovest thy crown in the middle, and gavest away both parts, thou borest thine ass on thy back o'er the dirt. Thou hadst little wit in thy bald crown when thou gavest thy golden one away. If I speak like myself in this, let him be whipped that first finds it so. And then the little ditty. Fools had ne'er less grace in a year, for wise men are grown foppish, and know not where their wits to wear, their manners are so apish. When were you wont to be so full of songs, sirrah? I have used it, nuncle, ere since thou madest thy daughters thy mothers. For when thou gavest them the rod, and putst down thine own breeches, then they for sudden joy did weep, and I for sorrow sung, that such a king would play bo peep, and go the fools among. Prithee, nuncle, keep a schoolmaster that can teach thy fool to lie. I would fain learn to lie.
And you lie, sir, we'll have you whipped. I marvel that kin thou and thy daughters are. They'll have me whipped for speaking true. Thou'lt have me whipped for lying. And sometimes I'm whipped for holding my peace. I'd rather be any kind of thing than a fool. And yet I would not be thee, nuncle, for thou hast pared thy wit on both sides and left nothing in the middle. Here comes one of the pairings. Okay, so we'll stop it at there. But we'll pick it up. We're still in Act 1, Scene 4, but the fool enters the scene, and the voice of holy wisdom presented in the guise of a fool. But there's wisdom coming and speaking virtuously to the king, trying to correct him and lead him on the right path. We'll pick it up next time.